Welcome, everybody, to Spirituality Adventures. This is a non-judgmental place to explore spirituality, and we're so glad you're here. This is a viewer and listener-supported podcast, so we greatly appreciate your support. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, share, and subscribe to any of the social media content platforms that you're using. And then if you go to our website, spiritualityadventures.com, you can make a one-time donation, or with a monthly subscription, you'll gain access to our bonus content. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. All right, welcome everybody to Spirituality Adventures. We're glad you tuned in. I am excited to interview Daniel McDill today. And we just met each other in person, but I was at Boulevardia a couple of weeks ago.
Back in June.
Oh gosh, time flies.
So I guess it's been about a month, actually.
Has it been a month? All right. Yeah, and we are sitting here in July of 2025, so 2023, July 25th.
Shout out to my little sister. It's her 21st birthday today.
Oh, hey. Yeah. What's her name?
Chloe, which, I don't know, it's kind of terrifying. She's 21 now. So.
All right, Chloe, happy birthday.
Don't do too much tonight.
There you go. But yeah, I saw Daniel perform and his back alley brass band with Sam Wells, and Sam Wells has been a guest here a couple of times with us. So some of our listeners know Sam, and I love the band, and I loved your vocals too.
Appreciate it.
Great singer. I thought, God, I want to do an interview with this guy. It's awesome. So yeah, so let's jump in. Let's get a little bit, like, where did you grow up? Give us a little bit of your family background and kind of your early years, elementary, middle school, high school.
Yeah. So I grew up in a little town called Independence, Kansas, about 10,000 people. It's a weird random town with a lot of like history to it that like not many people outside of the town knows. Like Sinclair Oil was founded there. Mickey Mantle played minor league baseball back there in the day.
Wow.
First monkey that went to space, Miss Abel, came from our little zoo. We have a little zoo for 10,000 people, but came from the zoo. There's still a little capuchin monkey exhibit in the zoo this day. So, yeah, so a little small town, 10,000. Grew up going to church my entire life. It was a pretty conservative Christian household. Usually went with my mom. It was a I have a very estranged relationship with my father. Probably been, just turned 30. It's about 14 years since I've talked to him, but there's a lot of negative stuff that I correlate to my childhood with that stuff, but a lot of good stuff at the same time. But grew up in like Assembly of God, tongue speaking, Holy Roller churches. Okay. So
that's what I was wondering.
And I'd have friends come to church, and it was just normal to me, like, because it's completely different than the Lutheran and the Methodist churches in town. And they're like, "What are they doing?" I'm like, "I don't know. They're just praying. What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Does your church not do this?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Oh, sorry, I don't know." We got about 30 more minutes of this, so buckle up.
Yeah. So was that positive or negative for you, or a mixture? The whole Christian Pentecostal thing.
It's a big mixture. Because I don't know, it's kind of a weird thing. Because I've talked to a lot of people like myself that grew up in church. And like you went to it, and you never, I don't know how much you really, like, you grasped everything, but like how much did it really mean to you? Because it just felt like is what you did. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. Towards the end of high school, early college, I got really hurt by a lot of people in the church that I was going to at the time. Just a lot of hypocritical stuff, kind of backstabbing almost, and so I kind of stepped away during college. And because I grew up I remember growing up very in a conservative household. Most of the town I went to was very conservative, and went to college, and I guess you can call me a bleeding liberal now. I guess I don't know.
Right.
Just you kind of meet. All of a sudden, I met people I'd never been around. I know. Growing up in church, I always heard the whole phrase of hate the sin, love the sinner, which that's a whole 3-hour podcast we could get into, but not today.
I've grown to dislike that.
Oh, I hate the phrase
because what ends up happening,
it's just hate. It's just hate. Yeah, there's no love that comes out of it.
I know. I'm with you, man. I've just watched that over and over again. It's just
I remember
one of my gay friends was like, yeah, they just start hating you with the love of Christ.
It really is. I mean, I remember the homosexual agenda being preached from the pulpit at one of the last churches I went to as a teenager, and I didn't think twice of it. It's just the churches I was in. I was a teenager, I didn't know any different, and I looked back and I'm like, this is insane.
Yeah,
like it should be that way. And then all of a sudden I met like some of my best friends from college were gay. My head professor of the department, she's been married to her wife now for a few. I mean, they'd been together forever, but they were finally able to get married. And I mean, she's one of the few people I could honestly say I would take a bullet for in this world. And I'm like, how could I ever think like that about this person and think that God doesn't love them or like they're doing God's work, because they're the most Christ-like person I've ever met in my life.
Yeah. I have some friends in that same kind of category. Yeah, for sure. What about your music? How did you get started in music?
So I started playing drums when I was 5.
Wow. Now, was that did your parents do music? Who influenced you to play drums at 5?
My mom grew up playing violin and piano, so there was always like a piano sitting around my grandma's house and whatnot. But honestly, what it started was I would just be sitting at church and I would just watch the drummer playing like at 4 years old, and I'd go home and I had like one of those like toy castle sets that are that you could pull out and put stuff out and stuff like that. And so little kids will like drag pots and pans out, but I would literally go at 4 or 5. I'd build a drum set. I'd take this toy bat, put in the tower, take a pot lid like a cymbal on a stand, and like making actual drums, and then just go home and repeat whatever I just heard the guy doing at church. And then did that for a couple of years. Got my first real drum set at like 6, 7. I used to play with the community college pep band when I was 7. Louie Louie was my song. So I mean it's an easy song, but for a 7-year-old to get up with college kids, looking back, I'm like, man, that was crazy. I don't even think I would even like, I don't think I'd let my kid go near college. That one.
Did you ever hear the Christian version of that? Pharaoh.
Oh, I probably did. Anyway. Probably did.
That brings back memories.
That just reminds me of artists like Carmen back in the day and whatnot.
Right.
They actually used to do concerts in my hometown. There used to be that's a whole side story. There used to be a lot of artists that would go through Independence, Kansas 9/10,000s, because he was I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. I will later, but he managed the Oak Ridge Boys. Who was the other blind piano player? Not Ray Charles, but he did some gospel and country stuff. Ronnie Millsap. So he came through town a lot because his manager lived there.
Yeah.
Biggest mistake the guy ever made was he told Kenny Rogers he couldn't sing, so the guy could have been way richer.
That's funny. Did you play in church some?
Yeah. So I grew up. That's where I started playing music for the most part. Started playing drums in the praise band at like 7, 8 years old. Okay. And then eventually moved to like playing guitar in middle school and then did bass. Probably from like my junior year of high school through sophomore year of college, I was a worship leader for the Assembly of God church that I went at the time. And then as of recently, I was the tenor section leader for the choir over at Rolling Hills Presbyterian over in Overland Park. Just had recently stepped down from that I just needed more. I just needed some Sundays back. I just could never go home and stuff like that. So, but I've been subbing at some other places like that. So it's still nice to get involved.
Cool, man. Well, it's interesting. Almost all the indie musicians that I've interviewed, Kansas City, and even around, I've done some from around the country and even in Europe and stuff, and most of them, even our rapper hip hop crews, got their starts in churches. So even if the church ended up being a bad experience for them, it's still it's interesting how these churches across the country get people going.
Yeah,
in the
I mean,
music world.
It's definitely a safe space, for younger kids that are just getting started in music, just to get up there and do something. If they mess up or they get scared and run off, who cares? They still got up there and tried.
Yeah, and people are for them, and
all
of that. So well, cool. So you went to Pittsburgh State University. That is the Gorillas?
The only Gorillas in the country. There is no other school in the world with the Gorillas as the mascot. So
I started going on fishing trips to northeast Oklahoma, like Grand Lake. And
my grandparents used to have a lake house on Grand Lake down there.
Below there that flows out of the dam there at the Grand Lake. We'd fish that river.
What is that dam called?
Hudson River there, and it's got some other, but and we would always stop at Chicken Annie,
Chicken Annie's and Chicken Mary's. The big battle between the two.
We did both, right?
Yeah, that ended up being on Food Wars on Travel Channel. I think Chicken Mary's won. Sorry, Chicken Annie's. Oh, your sides aren't as good, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, who's got the German coleslaw?
That's a different one. So there's like four different fried chicken places there. There's Barto's, there's Chicken Annie's, Chicken Mary's, Chicken Annie's Picklers, which is on the other end of town, which is completely different. It's just a lot of fried chicken.
One of them that had a German coleslaw that I really liked. But yeah, anyway. So I know Pittsburgh from that.
Yeah,
we'd be driving down and stop off and always have to have some chicken, right? So
I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, it's a good stop for that.
But yeah, you did music major. You did your bachelor's and master's.
My bachelor's and master's. So my bachelor's is in music education with an emphasis on percussion, and then my master's is in orchestral conducting. I was actually the first person to go through that program, so I was kind of the guinea pig. My intention at one point was to do wind conducting, but then the person that I was going to be doing it with I guess he was kind of, I don't know if he knew he was going to be leaving the program or if he just really wanted me to go study with somewhere else. But the program was an offer at the time, so like, you want to do orchestral conducting? I was like, sure, why not? Because my ex at the time still had a couple of years left in school, and so it was either try to find a job and then have to decide, do I want to keep this job or do I actually move in a couple of years to the Kansas City area like had planned to. And so I just ended up just doing my master's while I was there.
Yeah, so were you thinking post masters that you would jump into a full-time career?
My big fever dream life goal that I thought I wanted to do was, and I'm still very passionate about it, I thought I wanted to teach like music theory at the collegiate level and teach conducting classes. So like I always thought I wanted to be a band teacher. That's what I was going to be. And I remember I got about halfway through my student teaching, I realized this is not for me. I don't like this. I don't enjoy it. Like, I'm good at it. Just not for me. It's kind of one of those weird things about being a band director and music, especially band directors. Like maybe 10% of your job is making music. The rest of it's you're being a counselor, you're being an accountant, a fundraiser, a parent to some kids. Music. I mean, because as a kid going through band, all you see is the fun parts. You don't see all this stuff that they're doing on the side, the time they're missing from their families, of doing competitions and traveling. And then I just realized, I'm like, this is not for me. But I was so far along, I was like, I can't not finish the degree, because I had gone to school with so many people that hadn't finished their degrees or changed a bunch of times, and I'm like, I got to finish this. I'm so close. I still may end up wanting to do it. Who knows? So I ended up doing that. And then when I moved to Kansas City, I tried to get a teaching job, and I could not find one. I could not get one.
What year did you move here?
2018.
Okay.
The fall of 2018. So I moved up here, lived over by the stadium for a little bit, and then lived there through the beginning of COVID, then ended up finally moving downtown, and currently on the River Market area, which it's a really nice area.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice being near to everything. I gig downtown, I work downtown, so I might as well live downtown, you know. Especially for, as a kid growing up in a town of 9,000 and cows, it's a completely different experience. People are like, oh, Kansas City's not that big of a city. I'm like, well, it feels giant to me.
Right.
I can actually get everything I need in a 20-minute radius.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a cool spot. I just interviewed a gal named Natasha Keisler, who is a plant medicine type therapist. So anyway, but her and her husband Adam Keisler live down in the River Market as well. And
it's a neat little area.
It is cool.
The only downside is having to deal with all the people that come down to the city market on Saturdays and Sundays that do not know how to drive in the River Market, and you're like, get out of my neighborhood. I'm just trying to get to the store.
Right. Yeah, but it's definitely a cool spot.
Oh,
when I was growing up in the 70s, that place was getting bombed out by the mob. There were like mob wars going on. I mean, that basically got vacated. Nothing was going on in the late 70s down in the River Market, and I think that continued all the way through. Oh gosh, I don't know, but I think in the 90s is when they kind of
like revitalized it.
And then it's been amazing.
I wonder if I know like a lot of the Italian mafia have retired to Frontenac, Kansas, which is right outside of Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah.
So maybe that's when they moved there, was the 90s. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's
70s, a lot of old rich Italians in Frontenac, and nobody knows what they do.
In the 70s, we stayed away from the River Market in the 70s. It was like kind of crazy. Yeah. Anyway, it's a crazy fun place.
Oh, it's great. A lot of great restaurants and coffee shops.
But so you found you're working the way you pay your bills is one way.
Very much so.
But your passion and your musical career is not the way you're paying all your bills right now.
No,
right?
Not at all.
But that's you're pursuing your musical career and your passions in that arena.
It's been nice. It's been honestly way more than nice, just being able to, because I work for a large property insurance team it's like a wholesale brokerage. So we don't do normal insurance, and I don't ever talk to the insureds. Thank the Lord. And then and I don't have to work off commission, which, Lord knows I don't want to do that. But it's a great company that I work for. They took really great care of us during COVID. And it's a great people, great team, great environment, but they're really supportive of you doing things outside of the company. And they're like, this is your career and your job, but you also have everything else that you're passionate about out there, and we want you to do that. And so now that I've got a set schedule of I know when I'm doing this stuff, it affords me the ability to go out and perform a lot more than I was ever doing when I was trying to just do music. And it's honestly brought back a passion for playing again, because I can just enjoy it. I remember getting towards the end of my master's program where it'd just be 12, 13-hour days, teaching classes in the morning because I was a grad assistant, doing lessons, going to the ensembles, and then conducting the opera, getting out at 10 o'clock, going to a half-price burger and fries at somewhere, and then go to sleep at 1 o'clock in the morning, and then do it again for 7 more days. You got to the point where you performed so much where you wore a tuxedo and you did not feel dressed up because you wore it all the time. You didn't feel more dressed up unless you put on a normal suit and or khakis and a polo. You felt more dressed up than a tux.
Yeah.
Which is weird, but I guess it's kind of like that.
So how did you get involved in the music community here in Kansas City? What were your first steps?
There was a friend of mine some friends of that we all went to college together. One of them was like Tom, who was my freshman roommate that we got randomly paired up with, and we're like best friends to this day. We were like, we want to play in a band. We're all good musicians, and like, yeah, we played in jazz band in college and stuff like that. But like, you sneeze or you turn a corner and there's a jazz trio somewhere playing. You know, the market is just like so saturated. We're like, well, let's not do this. Like, what's something else we enjoy? We're like, we really like New Orleans music, like New Orleans brass band music. It's just fun. It's upbeat. It's loud. People dance to it. And we're like, nobody's really doing it in Kansas City. Like there's like one other group, but they don't play all the time. It's just more special occasion stuff. But consistently gigging, we're like, this seems kind of like a market we could kind of like tap into a little bit. And so 4 years later, we're here. We just played like Travis Kelce's music festival.
I saw that.
Just opened up. We opened up for the Kansas City Symphony at Celebration at the Station. We released a beer with Double Shift and Red Sash Brewing down in the Crossroads.
So tell the name of the band.
So the band name is Back Alley Brass Band.
And you started this.
We started this back in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah. And so currently it's a 10-piece band. I'm on drum set. I have an auxiliary percussionist next to me. His name's Jeremy. Awesome guy. He just recently joined the band. It's added so much. Besides that, we've got 2 trumpets, alto, tenor sax, 3 trombones, and a sousaphone. And then we also have like a sound guy that does a lot of stuff with us as well all the time. So thank God for Google Calendar, because we could not keep it straight. And also finding 10, 11 guys that can actually get along together and play that much music together is kind of cool at the same time.
How would people see? What are some of the ways that people could see what you're doing?
You could follow us on Instagram, Facebook. We've got a website as well that we post all of our shows on, past shows. We're trying to get a lot more present on Instagram lately, but that's where we post all our shows.
What's the handle on it?
If you just search Back Alley Brass Band, it'll come up.
Okay.
And if you go to our website, backalleybrass.com, you can also get to all the handles, and you get to our Spotify from there. We've got an album on Spotify and a couple singles as well. We play a lot through the area.
Is your album original material?
Yeah, so it's a mixture of like, the album is a mixture of some like a few covers, a few like New Orleans like traditional standard pieces, like Do What You Wanna, and which is, I guess it's kind of become a staple now. Just a Closer Walk with Thee, it was what we end the album with. And fun thing about that tune, we didn't even really learn that tune until a couple days before we recorded it, and we're changing stuff in the studio. Ended up being one of my favorite tracks on the album, honestly. But that was such a cool progress. We recorded that down at Weights and Measure Studios with Dwayne Trower near the 18th and Vine district area. Yeah. Real cool guy.
Do you know them, Matt?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome guy, awesome studio.
Who else did we know from Weights and Measure? Trying to think.
Girl that was here last week recorded there too.
Oh, Nikki White. Do you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He's a busy guy.
Yeah. That's cool.
Does amazing work, and he's busy for a reason. So no, like you can find all our shows. Like I know we just played this past weekend at the Nelson Atkins the Casey Lawn Party. This Saturday, well, we might have already played it by the time you're hearing this.
Yeah.
We'll be playing at Vine Street Brewing, which is the first black-owned brewery in Missouri, and they've got amazing beer. It's a cool thing going on. They deserve all the success in the world. We're going to be playing at 816 Day in 18th and Vine. We've got shows coming up at the Ship, at Nighthawk downtown. That's beneath Cotel, Kansas City. We're going to go up to Omaha sometime soon. We'll always do a lot of First Fridays. First Fridays is a big thing for us. We get a lot of publicity, and we usually set up in between Red Sash and Double Shift and put out a sound system, and it just turns into a giant block party. Just all of a sudden there's like 100 to 200 people just dancing.
That's fun. I know that Pitch did an article on on you last year on the social symphony.
Social
stuff.
Symphony, yeah. So the real name of the group is the Drunk Orchestra, because we can't put that on a 501(c) because we are a nonprofit. But yeah, so the Social Symphony of Kansas City. So when we started it, it was basically right when I moved up here.
Before COVID.
Yeah, so this was before COVID, and had some people had an idea for it, and they're like, "Hey, like if we put together this group, like because we miss playing, but also like drinking beer, I want to do it at the same time somehow." And we're like, "Okay." I was like, "If you somehow get people in front of me, I will wave my hands around and somehow make music with people I don't know." So we posted on Reddit, on the Kansas City subreddit. She'd be like, "Hey, this is what we're trying to do. If this sounds interesting to you, meet up at the Rhino at such and such time in North KC." And so I was like, "Okay, we'll see if anybody shows up." And I walk in, and there's like 50 people in the room.
That's crazy.
I just start laughing because I can't believe like people are actually here.
Did they show up with instruments?
No, it was just an informational thing, and it was fun to see though, because all of a sudden you saw people that like knew each other from like college marching band, and like I haven't seen you in a couple of years, and all of a sudden like people are just like reunions going on and new friendships, and it's really cool to this day. So now at this point we're up to 85 people with a waiting list in the group, full strings, brass, winds, percussion. Trying to get into the grant games because we started off doing all of our concerts inside of breweries. Like our first one was inside of Boulevard, the beer hall there.
It's a cool spot.
We've played at Rochester Brewing. We did one at Cinder Block and some other places, but we've gotten to where we have to do event spaces now because we were busting fire codes at these breweries.
Cinder Block, is that?
It's the one in North KC.
Oh yeah,
I got some really good some ciders there I really like.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got a full board of directors. We're trying to get some grant money so we can get more bigger spaces because event spaces are not cheap. Finding that out. Whew.
So
so it's completely self-funded by people in the group. Like everyone pays like $40 a month. That's in the group, and it pays for the music, pays for the rehearsal space. None of us take a cent from us. It's all out of the love of our hearts at this point.
And then then you guys you practice, and then you're doing
we do two
performances.
So we do a fall season and a spring season, and we currently rehearse downtown at this event space, and so they're on Monday nights from 7 to 9.
How many people show up at this practice space?
So our last concert we had 85 people in the ensemble.
Wow.
That's huge. Yeah, and I have a waiting list of people that I've had to tell them no. Yeah,
you're the conductor.
Yes.
Yeah. And what kind of music are you doing?
So we've done a lot of stuff. I mean, during this fall, we usually end up doing like a mixture of like Christmas music and classical music. I'm still in the middle of deciding this upcoming season. I'm leaning towards doing a Nightmare Before Christmas concert and doing half Halloween, half Christmas music, and doing some classical music like Night of Bald Mountain and stuff like that. We've done like movie music before, done some pop stuff. Like we had like an arrangement of some Lady Gaga music. Never thought I'd do that for orchestra. It's kind of neat though. We actually got to commission a piece this past year called "Glory to Ukraine." So we took the Ukrainian national anthem, and I had a friend of mine that was a composer, and based it off of that. There was some people that did some arrangements out there, but they weren't really widespread out. So we were like, you know what, screw it, let's just do our own. And it ended up being really cool that we have something of our own now. Ended up being gorgeous. So
Do you have that videoed anywhere?
There's a video on YouTube somewhere.
Okay. And
the audio is kind of hit and miss because it was inside a cinder block brewery, and so we literally had people walking through the ensemble trying to go outside, stuff like that. So we started doing that. It's a group to focus on the social aspect of music. it's been really neat seeing a lot of friendships. I mean, some of my best friends now are people I would have never met without this group, you know. So I'm very thankful for the experience of it. Well, I mean, I remember back to the first rehearsal when we're like people showed up. I'm like, I don't even know if these people can play. Like I went in terrified, just expecting the worst, and then we tried to play one song and it went pretty decent. I was like, okay, we can work something with this. And so we took about a year and a half off during COVID. Just because we didn't feel it was a necessary risk, you know. We weren't necessary. So we finally got to come back. I think it was fall of 21. I think that's kind of when everything else in the world started opening back up a little bit.
Yeah,
and we've been doing concerts then since.
How would people, like, if you do a performance that people can attend, how would they find?
Yeah, you can. So you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. Social Symphony of Kansas City.
Okay.
We also have a website as well where you can buy merchandise of ours. We've got merchandise from all of our past concerts. Everything goes straight to the group. So it's a really cool thing. We actually, like this past concert we did out in Parkville at the Old Mill Emporium. So finally getting bigger. Like it was our first time we had a professionally like printed program. We had sponsors. Vine Street Brewing wasn't even open yet, and they like sponsored us and had like Casey Strings and Casey, and like, you know, we had, you know, alcohol, like beer and wine there like during the concert for people to purchase. And like I think it was Casey Beer Co. Shout out to them. They sent like 3 kegs. We had to have like a couple social nights just to hang out, or just to get rid of it because there was too much they sent us. We're like, appreciate it, but this is a lot. But so it's just a really cool community effort.
That's awesome. I love that. And then the Back Alley Brass Band. How you've got 10 people in it right now?
Correct.
And what's the breakdown as far as the instruments go?
Yeah, so we've got 2 trumpets. They're both guys I went to college with, Tom Lawler and Justin Crossman. And then we've got an alto and tenor sax, Eric, who's on alto, who I went to school at Pitt State with a couple of years. And then Alex Tepper, who's a local band director at Shawnee Mission East. He's playing tenor sax with us. And then we've got 3 trombones. 2 of them are named Matt. So we got Matt and Matt. And then Chaco Finn is also playing trombone. He plays with a lot of other groups in the area. Amazing player. Patrick Ye is on sousaphone. Jeremy Reynolds is on auxiliary percussion, and Caleb White does a lot of sound stuff for us. So it's like 10 plus 1 if you want. You can throw in sound and other stuff because Caleb also does some percussion stuff as well when we need it.
And you're doing?
I just do all drum set, and I sing over stuff as well. So starting to get into more of trying to play drums and singing, which is a weird animal because you have to like separate your brain into like 2 different sides, and like also like trying to not move your upper body around so you're not like shaking around when you're singing and stuff like that. So, but it's a lot of fun. Something I'm trying to get more into.
Yeah, like a Dave Grohl kind of a thing.
I will never be as cool as Dave Grohl. Dave Grohl's the man. He's like Dave Grohl's the pinnacle of the coolest musicians. Just everybody wants to be friends with him, and he's the nicest dude in the world.
Makes you wonder who was the real talent in Nirvana, right? You know, I don't.
They were all talented, man.
They were.
I wish I was born a little bit too late to really enjoy Nirvana. I need to dive into Nirvana. Put that on my Spotify playlist.
Yeah. Well, so yeah. So the event that you did where Travis Kelce, was he rapping with you guys?
No. So it was
what was that?
We got contacted that they wanted some like entertainment to people.
I saw a video shoot somewhere. I can't remember where.
Yeah, we were
Travis singing.
He was
singing or doing something on a mic.
Well, yeah, he was just kind of emceeing. I think it was a video I posted on my Instagram, actually, probably.
Okay.
But he was just kind of hyping up the crowd. But yeah, we were like 10 feet away from him when he spiked the Lombardi. It was not real. I mean, when he did it, we're like, that's not the real one, right?
What event was that?
It was called Kelsey Jam, and so he was just it was like Tech Nine, Rick Ross, Machine Gun Kelly was all like performing at the event, and just had bunch of DJs too.
Which Rick Ross?
Rick Ross, the rapper.
But there's an old guy that went to prison that was the drug dealer. Rick Ross is that?
I don't know if
it's a different. Okay.
That's
Highway
I was like,
Rick
that's
Ross. Okay. Yeah,
that's
sorry.
a different. Yeah, no, no, that's very much. Yeah, very much different.
Sorry, totally different. I actually talked to Highway Rick Ross one time.
Really?
Here, like in the last year. Who was it? Who knows Highway Rick Ross? That was, oh man. That was, who's the dude from Hawaii? I'm blanking on names today. The Hawaii rapper.
Oh,
Darrison knows Highway Rick Ross, and he put me in touch with him. Anyway, it was a crazy thing.
Small world.
Yeah. But yeah, so Rick Ross, the rapper, and Tech Nine.
Machine Gun Kelly, there's some other DJs.
And
I don't
you guys
remember.
were in
So we
that
were
mix.
just so what they brought us in. So we're just kind of like going throughout all the crowds and setting up in different places, just entertaining everyone throughout the time. There's at one point I ended up in the middle of Travis's entourage, so I'm just surrounded by security and NFL players that are way bigger than me. Like, I'm not a small guy, but good Lord, that made me feel small. And so all of a sudden I just realized Travis was like right here to me. So I just like handed him my sticks, and he was like, "Let's go!" And so he just like started playing my drum for a little while. So he's got good tempo. 2 and 4 he's got 2 and 4 down. So no, that was a really cool experience. And then we got to go out on stage with him. We were basically his backup dancers for a little bit after he beer luged the Lombardi and then spiked it in front of us.
That's funny. Wow, that's fun stuff though.
Yeah, I just kind of looking back, I'm like, man, that happened. Like, this is insane.
Yeah, I was at a basketball game at Sprint Center several years ago, and some friend of mine who had like floor great tickets. Yeah, UCLA was playing against somebody, and Travis was 2 rows behind me, and at halftime, everybody kind of swarmed him.
Oh yeah,
but he just rolled with it. He didn't act.
Oh no,
he
was
just rolled. He signed. He took pictures. He just
the whole event. Like, he was just hanging out in the middle of
just,
everyone. He was eating wings, dancing with the band. Just he was having a great time. He had a great time. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, well, that's fun stuff. Wow. So what? Give us a little take about what's on the horizon for both Social Symphony and Back Alley Brass Band. Where do you see these?
It's
going.
Social Symphony is getting to the point where we're in the talks of making the plans of going to have to start a second ensemble, because we have so many people now, with a waiting list of people that want to play, but I can't have 20 trumpets in a group, or you wouldn't be able to hear the violins and nothing else but trumpets. And I'm sure trumpet players would love that, but I can't do that for music's sake. Would love to branch out with the second group, kind of start trying to play some harder music eventually, which we've been doing the entire time, whether they realize it or not. Like, when we started playing back in 2018 to the music we're playing now, we could have never played the music we're playing now back then. So they just kind of gotten back to it. It's because there's people sitting next to each other that like either like music majors or they're music teachers, went to like places like one guy went to Berkeley. This one lady that comes to play flute, she went to Juilliard. And then there's people that they found their not saxophone, like flutes or clarinets sitting in their closet from college marching band 20 years ago. It's like, well, I think I tried it again, And so you've got all these different levels of people playing next to each other. So it's really cool.
Is it all ages?
Yeah. So, I mean, you have to be 21 and older, obviously. Since the United States is the last on board with 21 as the drinking age in the world. That's another conversation. Get on it, United States. So yeah, we've had 21 to like 60,
Okay.
60 each. There was a couple of people in their 60s. So it's kind of, that median range is a lot of people around, 30 to 40 is kind of like that, where a lot of people are 25 to 30. But that 25 to 40 is kind of like that bread and butter range where a lot of people are at.
That's fun.
And then the brass band, we're hoping to get in the studio this winter, maybe record some more tunes, put out like another small album or an EP or something.
Who's the main writer then, or composer for brass band?
So one of the guys in the band, Matt Fillingham, he writes a lot of original tunes for us. Chaco writes some stuff for us. A lot of the music we do is also in like New Orleans traditionals, and a lot of people do. So it's kind of like covers of covers of covers, you know. We're at a point where we probably got about like 3.5 hours of music, you know, that we can play. But just always just trying to build a bigger book, find the next big thing. I mean, it kind of felt like it's kind of hard to top that little like kind of like high we had of like all of a sudden Travis Kelce, this is your beer we just made. You're opening up for the symphony, and then we're like, all right, what do we do now? You know, it's just kind of figuring out like what's our next step. And so I think our next step is just trying to write a lot more music. And it's a weird group to try to write for. That it's a hard instrumentation to write for too, because you don't have like you can't
involved in that though
a little bit.
Okay.
I'm not that creative on that part. But you know, with the normal like bands, you've got bass guitar and keys that you could fill out a lot of these. You could play chords on, whereas every single of our instruments, logistically you can only play one note at a time, so it takes 3 people to make a chord rather than one person. So it's kind of like laying out everything. How does this work? Well, that line doesn't work, let's try that.
Interesting. So give us your next few, because this will come out in a couple of weeks. So what, like your August, September schedule? Do you have something already out there?
Let me look it up real quick, because Lord knows I can't remember my own schedule. Almost there. Yeah, so Friday, August, so Saturday, July 29th, which will probably be before this comes out, will be at Vine Street Brewing. Granted, if it's not 105 degrees out, because the forecast does not look promising for that. So, crossing fingers, we might get some like rain Friday and cool it off. Who knows? Friday, August 11th, we'll be at the Ship in the main room from 10 to like 1 in the morning down there in the West Bottoms. The Ship's an amazing venue. If you've never been there for music, there's always music going on. There's a main stage, then there's the OG brass band den. It's kind of what they call it in the back. Okay. They've got food, they got drinks. It's usually a $10 cover that goes to all the musicians and stuff like that. So it's definitely a spot to check out. Even if you don't get to see us, go check out some other musicians there. Now, it won't be on actual August 16th, because that's a Wednesday. But on Sunday, August 13th, down in the 18th and Vine Jazz District, they're going to be having an 816 day, just celebrating Kansas City. So we're going to be doing stuff along with a bunch of other Kansas City musicians, and most of the acts are revolving around horn-based acts. So there's going to be a lot of brass going on that day besides us. And then August 26th, we'll be at the Nighthawk from 9 to 12. And the Nighthawk is beneath Hotel Kansas City, downtown. It's kind of a speakeasy kind of feel. It's honestly like one of my favorite places to play right now. It's just, people just have a great time. It's a cool vibe. People that work there are great. A lot of the time there's like weddings going on upstairs at the hotel, and so like halfway through the second set you just have like 2 weddings just come crash here and set. So we get the bride and groom on stage, and everyone already comes down the stairs in a good mood, so they're just ready to keep going.
That's fun stuff. Well, I'm excited about what you guys are doing. It's fun.
It's kind of nuts that, I mean, as a kid from a small town, never thought I'd be able to play some of these gigs that I'm doing in Kansas City. You know, and I've got one of the ladies that I'm friends with at the church I used to sing at, Donna Tucker, who's been singing in the jazz scene here for years. She's like, I've never seen a group like grow as fast as you guys have in 4 years. And so when we, you know, I had never really thought about that until she said that, and I was like, man, we really have come a long ways in the short time that we've been, including COVID, you know, being in the middle of that 4 years.
Yeah. All right. Well, excellent. Well, thank you for coming out and doing this interview. I want to encourage everybody to check out both Social Symphony and Back Alley Brass Band. They are amazing. I just heard them the first time at Boulevardia and loved it. The energy I mean, it just makes you want to get up and
you can't be sad listening to our music. If
it's just fun.
If you're still sad after our show, I can't help you on that one. But it's just a lot of dancing. You know, it's just everything's upbeat. You can sing along. It's just a good time. You don't have to be like, you don't have to know music to enjoy it. You know, my favorite type of music to play is just to the general public. If the general public love it, then I'm here for it. If I can make somebody dance, that's what it's about.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, thank you for joining us. Thanks everybody
thanks for having me.
You bet. Thanks everybody for tuning in to Spirituality Adventures, and we will see you next time. This concludes today's episode. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Remember, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Remember to like, share, or subscribe to the social media platform that you're using. And then go to our website, spiritualityadventures.com, and make a one-time donation, or you can subscribe monthly and receive our special bonus content. Thanks so much.